Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the awesome Q95. Now I think it's a little bit of a sneaky trick calling a model or a brand awesome, because in order to describe it you have to say that it's awesome, and well, what if it's not? Well, we shall see in this video. So it is a brushless micro, of course, and it is the 95mm size, hence the name. And we have got here, so they are awesome branded motors, and again I have to say awesome. Let's see if the camera can focus in on the motor there. So they are 7500 kV 1103 motors, and then we have got the gem fan props. Now a couple of things with this one is that it came with props, didn't come with screws. Now I'm just trying to figure out if they haven't provided screws on purpose, because these blades, they fit on really tightly, and when you do put screws in, they bend a little bit from the tension of the screws. And I was reading that people are using these blades without putting screws in, but I didn't want to risk that. But yeah, you don't get given the screws with these, so you're going to have to source those yourself. You're not given a battery with this guy either, so you can use either a 2S or a 3S. So I'm going to go straight for the 3S, and I'm going to be using these old Taranis Nanotech 450 milliamp 3S batteries. And you can see there they are a high discharge rate, which we need with these micros. And then we have got the ESC here, so it's all in one 10 amp, so it will take a 3S, a JST connector there. By the way, you might notice that I've put two cable ties on the back there, and that is because this wire lifts up into the props. If you don't, it goes either side of this LED board, which by the way I have had to glue in. It was just in with hot glue, but as we know, hot glue does not connect very well with carbon, and it just came loose, so I've glued that in properly. So we have got the LED board at the back, and then a voltage buzzer and loss model alarm as well, which I've set it up for. And the LEDs are connected to the DIN. They're set to blink out of the box, and I don't like that, so I've turned that off and changed them from colour to arm state. So they change colour when the model is armed, and also they change colour when you lift the throttle up as well. That is a setting they have changed there. Now this is an interesting choice of components. The flight controller is an Omnibus F3, and this model doesn't have an on-screen display, but the flight controller supports an on-screen display. And if you see these two pins here, that is your video in and your video out. But they have chosen a camera that doesn't have its camera and VTX split, so there's just the power connector coming from this camera. But technically what you could do is you could run video in and out from the flight controller here, and then split the signal. So these cameras work off these little standoffs that connect them both together. You could clip the video signal out and then intercept it with the in and out of this here, and then you'd have yourself an on-screen display. I don't know why they didn't do that. Probably cost, I would imagine. Now you do get a receiver with this, but it's also not soldered to the model. It comes in a package, and they sent me the FlySky version, and it's the old protocol. And one thing that's bad about the old FlySky protocol is you can't set a failsafe, so I'm not going to be using this. I would say get the FrSky version or the non-receiver version, then add one of the newer FlySky protocol receivers to it, because these days we want a failsafe, don't we? I think when this first came out, it was the only mini FlySky receiver, so I had to put up with it, but now we don't have to put up with it. So I've attached an old D8 receiver on here, and what I like about this top part of the frame is the receiver fits in really nicely. You're given a sticky pad as well, so I've cut that up and put that in there, and then you can see here you have to solder this. So you've got the signal, the 5 volt, and then the ground, then you have to solder that to the omnibus flight controller there. So the camera is 25 milliwatt, 48 channel, and we've got just the one button on the front there. A long press of it takes you through the different bands, and a short press is the 8 different channels. Also LEDs on the back as well, which show you what channel that you're on, and you have to compare that to a chart that you are given here. It's the only instructions that you're given with this model, which is a pain as well, just for the camera. And then we've got sleeve dipole antenna up the top there, which should be good for in a crash, means it's not going to break off. The camera was in loose. We have this little plate here that the camera sits on. I've just wedged it in there. I've added a little bit of sticky back foam on there, and they give you extra foam tape, so maybe that's what that's for. And you can't adjust the angle of it. Well, of course you can adjust the angle, it just depends on how you have stuck it in there. So I've just put it at the angle of the bottom plate there. But yeah, they could have stuck that in a little bit better, I think. And I think when you buy a Bynum Fly, you expect the receiver to already be connected, but you're going to have to do some soldering with this one. And like I say, very strange choice not using the on-screen display there. So what else do you get given in the package? Not a lot is the answer. You saw the receiver and the heat shrink there. You do get given these prop protectors though, which means that if you remove the stand here, so yeah, nice little, they look 3D printed, and it just stands off the ground there. So this one might be a contender for flying indoors, and you know, might be a top-end model as well if you stick the video in and out on there. So yeah, maybe it has got potential, this one for sure. But yeah, nothing else, no instructions. This is the box that it comes in, and you can see they're completely empty. And it came with Betaflight version 3.1 on there, so you might want to update that to the latest version for Omnibus. Other than that, I have bound it to the Taranis, and I have set up my 3 usual modes of arming there. Then the modes of angle, acro, and air, and then on the auxiliary 3 I've set up as a buzzer there as well. So just a couple of other things I want to mention. It was set up as One-Shot 125 out of the box. I have changed that to D-Shot 600, so these are BL Heli ESCs. And then we have got 2 rubber bands underneath there, and they're really thick, which I like, so that is for holding your battery. And the only thing is, they have put them in and then built everything else around it, so if one of these snaps, you're probably going to want to get a spare Velcro strap just in case there. And a couple of the things that I changed in Betaflight is no modes were set up, so I mentioned the modes earlier, I just put those in there. I have changed the PIDs because on a 3S I was getting oscillation, so I'll give you the PIDs a little bit later when I do the flight. I've bumped up the Super Rate to 0.8 as well, and it was also set up as AETR out of the box for FlySky, so I've changed that to TAER for the Taranis default channel map as well. Motor start was turned off out of the box, which means that when you arm the quadcopter, the motors will spin, means you'll have full control at bottom throttle, which I like. And I also reduced the voltage warning as well, because that was just stock Betaflight voltage warning. I turned that down to about 3.2 volts per cell. So the weight, it weighs 52 grams without a battery, and then it weighs just 90 grams with my Nanotech 3S, so very lightweight model. I think this one's going to have a ton of power. Okay, let's go for a takeoff. I'm going to be very careful on the throttle first of all with this, because I think it's going to have a lot of power. So let's try it. Yeah. This one's going to be up there with some of the most powerful models there. I thought it might. Loads of power. Let's try it in acro, see what it's like, and get a feel for the tune. Seems okay, no fluttering, which is always a good sign. I like this, you know. Feels alright, no vibrations or anything like that. I'm not feeling it through the throttle anyway, just feels really clean, which can be a problem with these models, them being so small. Wow, I really like it. This one has a lot of potential. I think it might be worth trying to get the on-screen display going with it. Let's switch back to angle mode and see if it's doing any drifting, because that can happen with these things. No drifting? No. It's fine. That's great. Yeah, nothing bad to report so far. Just look at that. A bit of prop wash there, but nothing unusual about that. Very difficult at this size. That moves about. Back into acro. Feels very nimble. Yeah, just put it anywhere I want and it just sticks. Right, I better come in for a landing and then I can try some FPV with it. So here is some DVR footage taken from my Dominator HD3s, and the thing that I noticed straight away is that at the top of the throttle there seems to be no vibrations or jello coming through to the camera, which is really good news. So the way that they have mounted that camera seems to have worked, or this system doesn't have much vibrations coming through to it, and that would explain also why there wasn't any drift in angle mode. So yeah, that's pretty impressive really. And despite this copter having one of those square cameras that usually have bad picture quality, this one wasn't too bad. There's a couple of dark spots in the corners where the camera is adjusting for the exposure, but it's not too bad. And you can see that I just did my punch out over the tree and minimal breakup as well. So yeah, pretty impressed with this one so far. Now, I'm using the Nanotech high C-rated battery here, and I did do a flight with a lower C-rated battery, and I was able to brown the system out. It did take a huge amount of abuse and throttle to get it to do it, and it did it in the form of a flip of death. So what I will say, if you are interested in this model, is definitely get some high C-rated batteries. These Nanotech ones I'm using, they're about a year old now, and they're definitely worn out. So yeah, high C-rated battery. I'm actually glad they didn't provide a battery with this one, because when they have been providing batteries, they haven't been enough. So I've used my own batteries anyways. So yeah, higher C-rated battery, and putting an XT30 on there wouldn't go amiss as well. And I was thinking about this because this flight controller does have an on-screen display, which means that even though it's not connected, it does still power up. So that will explain why, if you use a lower C-rated battery, then you can still get the system to brown out in the form of a flip of death. So yeah, still a struggle with these micros with that, but I think the companies will eventually learn. Anyway, I got a good tune out of this, so I'll overlay the PIDs here if you want to use it, and that is my review of the awesome Q95. It is pretty awesome, so I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.